Good afternoon, everyone. We're watching the participants join. Thank you for connecting this afternoon. I think we have a really great presentation for today, albeit it's a little bit shorter than normal, but that just means we have more time to address questions that you may have, or everybody always enjoys getting a few minutes of their day back that they may have had blocked. So today we're talking about return on investment, or the ROI of financial literacy. Financial literacy, or financial wellness that so many people are calling it today, continues to be a really hot topic on college campuses. With student loan debt in this country topping $1.5 trillion. Tom, every time I say that, it just makes my teeth cringe.
Right.
$1.5 trillion in national debt with a default rate of 10.8%. And our students, you know, it's just so important to the U.S. government and to the colleges that we stay on top of the default rate, but that we serve our students as well. So the question for the day is financial literacy. Why does it matter? And then let's address the real questions. When it comes to the end of the day, does it fit in the budget? And to know that, what is the return on investment for offering financial literacy on your campus? And why is it a key to the success of your institution? Let's get started.
Terrific. Thank you, Brenda. And as always, if you've been with us before, you know the drill here. But we want to know where all of you are calling in from. We want you to be able to communicate with us during the session, because when you enter the room, your microphones are set to mute to cut down the background noise. And so in the chat room, if you could, just tell us where you're calling in from. That way we know you have a good mastery of the chat room, and we know where everyone is. There's Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Welcome back. We've got, it looks like Kristen from Sacramento, Ruth from North Carolina. Gosh, they're going by really fast.
Lisa from Clovis, California.
Yes, yes. Nampa. I've been to Nampa, Idaho, long time ago. I was doing the project. Yeah.
Oops, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Tom.
You're fine. Colorado Springs, Sacramento.
Yes. Chris from New York. Hi, Chris.
Excellent. Oh, hey, there is Chris D'Souza. Welcome. And I see Irma is with us as well. All righty. Good job, everyone, and thank you for participating today. We look forward to sharing this information with you. It's very important. I don't think, sometimes I think some institutions may just offer financial wellness to check the box. And so this is the best way. We're going to talk about how you really, manage your investment, or get your most bang for your bucks. Now that I've circled the airport on that one, I'm going to land the plane and turn it back over to Brenda.
Thanks, Tom. Well, it is Wednesday, so it's hump day. But with that, let's see what we're going to cover today. So we're going to begin by looking at some of the national trends and analysis within higher education, which will help support the importance of financial literacy on your college campus. We'll dive into some elements of the investment and how they touch the student lives during various times of the student life cycle. We'll help identify factors that should be measured and how to convert knowledge gain into monetary value. Then to wrap up, we'll share a few notes on how to share this information with your administration. Please remember that there's no specific right or wrong as we move through this presentation, but rather this is a concept to review and to assess to build your own return on investment for financial literacy. So get your pen and pad ready. Tom?
Terrific. Thank you so much. Now, NASFA published an article on how well do students understand their student loan debt. As noted here, 486 students who were surveyed, and of those, 332 say they're not confused about their student loans at all, or the amount of debt that they have. 142 of them say they're a little bit confused about the student loan debt, but only 12 admit to being confused about their overall student loan debt. So in reality, nearly 2/5, or 182 of those students, understand the amount of student loan debt that they owed. So they were somewhat debt confused, and nearly 1 out of 10, or 49 of those students, underestimated their debt by at least $10,000. So they were really a little bit more confused. This only leaves about half the students being surveyed, which made up freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and transfers who completed the FAFSA had a reasonable understanding of their debt situation. Not only that, but today we know that almost 55% of students graduate after 6 years in college, but the goal has always and still should be 4 years, right? More Americans are going to college than ever before. Here's an alarming reality, and Brenda just alluded to this. Over $44 million Americans collectively hold close to about $1.5, $1.6 trillion in student loan debt, which again, you know, that makes your teeth hurt, that makes my hair stand on end. And if any of you know what I look like, I'm a bald man. So I guess that really has less and less importance with each passing year. So we need to ask ourselves, are college students borrowing blindly? Now, I've worked in a financial aid office, Brenda's worked in a financial aid office, most of you work in financial aid offices, and you know that the answer, you know, just kind of off the top of your head is probably yes. Now, the Brown Center on Education Policy at the Brookings Institute, they published a wonderful study in 2016. Now, they began with a survey of students with what you and I would consider to be easy questions. So here, let's take a look at what they asked. Now, what did you pay for your very first year in college? And the answer there, or the results were, only 55% knew the correct answer. The next question was, how much did you borrow to attend college? And alarmingly low, 38% of all knew that answer. And then lastly, 28% of freshmen with that answered that they had no debt at all. Now, financial education, we know, goes back to the beginning. You know, things like what is debt, credit, income and expenses, things like that. I did a presentation yesterday at a school in Carlsbad, California. I was down there for the day, and I was surprised. I pulled the audience. I was surprised with the answers that I got or I didn't get, or just the blank stares. And so, you know, we all care and understand why students need to understand this basic information, but how do we do it, right? So I'm going to turn it back over to Brenda, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the elements of investment.
So thanks, Tom. So what are the elements? What do we count? So ask yourself these questions. Do you happen to use online financial literacy modules or courses on your campus? What about classroom involvements? Don't forget the TRIO programs, first generation programs, and other things like University 101s, which we know are highly successful. What student success tools and resources do you make available to your students? And I really do want to know this answer. Please use your chat box and let us know if you offer a peer-to-peer counseling center at your institution. Anyone? Kristen does not. So what about TRIO programs? We know nationally that TRIO is required to offer student financial literacy. We know many states have now mandated high schools teach financial literacy. However, few states have even allocated funds to make that very successful. The New York Times reported in 2018 that the Champlin College Center for Financial Literacy only gave 5 states, who are Alabama, Missouri, Tennessee, Utah, and Virginia, a letter grade of an A, saying that they meet the guidelines and the efforts that should be put towards high school financial literacy education. These 5 states require high school students to take at least a half a year of personal finance courses in order to graduate high school. That's amazing. Definitely a reason it makes those 5 states stand out. The same report gave Bs to 19 states who require students to receive personal finance instruction to graduate, but they don't have a complete semester required. And then 12 states received Cs, and 4 states received Ds. The remaining 20 states plus the District of Columbia actually flunked the rating by the Institute. And reviews that they gave had few options to high school students at all. So at the end of 2018, 38 states of the 50 states, 38 of the 50 states, now Tom, my tongue's getting tangled, have actually passed legislation requiring some form of financial literacy be required to graduate high school. However, only 24 states require personal finance education with additional direction and funding. Several of the 12 states that do not require financial literacy in high school do have some of the strongest financial wellness education institutions across the country. For example, that would be Indiana and Ohio. So what about the net price calculator? Again, let's use the chat box. Is this a financial literacy tool too, or is it a resource?
And I just wanted to point out we did get a comment here from Annalise. I believe that's I pronounced that correctly. We just offer financial literacy workshops, and I would say congratulations, that's great. And I wouldn't say we just offer, because you're doing a lot more than some schools do, and so good job there.
So what about the net price calculator? Does anybody have an opinion?
We know you're out there.
I think they are. Well, I'll keep going, but go ahead and think about that. And if you decide you have an opinion about if it's a tool or if it's a financial literacy resource, jot it down in the chat box and let us know your thoughts. So the colleges or universities, oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
I didn't mean to advance. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. The colleges or universities should be able to provide a cost per student that each of the elements above cost at your institution. Online modules cost plus percentage of faculty salary, the times, the hours for instructions on financial wellness in the classroom, plus the cost of student success tools directly related to student success per student. All of this is going to be built into your calculation. We know that there is a student loan dilemma in this country, and some are referring to it today as the gap dilemma. Too poor for college, too rich for financial aid. A great article to read was published in Forbes way back on July 14, and I'm going to provide that link just because it's such a great article, even though it's a little dated in our resources. Factors to measure is an important piece of the puzzle. And once you actually know the elements, the equations can begin to come together. Start doing the math just like a puzzle. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you. And we did get a couple of answers in the chat room. It looks like Christine and Sean both said the net price calculator is a tool.
I like their comments.
I agree. Oops.
Thank you.
All righty, for some reason, our platform today has a mind of its own. It keeps advancing on me unexpectedly. We're going to have a poll here for you. So give me just one moment to open this poll up. So you'll see the question here. The most impactful financial literacy program component, and your choices are A, pre and post test, B, in-classroom college-level curriculum, C, real money experiences, or D, on campus. So I'm going to launch this poll, and you should be able to see that poll on your screens now, and it should allow you to vote. Please let me know if you don't have access to that poll.
It's the one at the top.
Do you guys see the poll on your screen? If somebody could chat me in the chat box.
We have one response.
Cool, okay.
So just click on your answer. Yes, Kristen, it's asking 3 questions. At this point, we're only going to answer number 1. The most impactful financial literacy program component.
Oh, did I launch all 3 of them at the same time? I did. I am so sorry.
Yes.
I'm like the nutty professor today or something.
Doesn't let you submit without answering all three. Well, Tom, we'll give them a little bit more time and let them answer all three, and then we'll do check-ins when it's time for the next two.
Oh,
Thank you so much for your feedback.
I apologize for that, folks. All righty, are we ready
Just
to?
another second or so.
Okay.
How many do we have that's voted? Climbing, we're almost halfway there. Like I said, if you just want to click, you can select your answer. Tom, let's give them just 4 or 5 more seconds to wrap things up.
All righty.
Oh, I didn't realize you set a clock as well, Tom.
I know, isn't this fancy? All right, so we're right at 2 minutes here. I'm going to go ahead and close the polling. And Brenda, you want to cover at least the first one for us?
Absolutely. So the National Financial Education Council created a model that identifies the importance of evaluation components to measure the program's impact. So we all know pre and post test is a way to measure knowledge gain, and this is a great way to know if you're hitting your target. And we also know requiring students to learn financial literacy basics in a required course such as University 101 is a great way to make sure students are actually exposed to financial literacy. But NFEC's conclusion is that real money experiences such as games or activities, hands-on experiences, is the key component to success. Although on-campus workshops are also a great idea, it's all about the student making it real to each individual student. And Tom, I'm just going to give a quick plug to our FAB Life real life simulation that comes in a small box that's ready to throw out there. You know, I do it with students, and so many times they see a pencil with an eraser on the end and they look at me like I have lost my mind. But as they go through the real life simulation and they have to actually erase different items and go shopping again, it really does make it really real to them. So I'd encourage you to keep this in mind as you're planning your next on-campus financial wellness events.
Okay. All right, so we've identified some efforts and elements of the institution's investment into financial literacy for their students. So now we really need to determine the factors to actually measure. Think about the following questions, and we'll come back to these in just a few minutes, but let's go through some of these questions that we've compiled here. The first one is, what is the total number of students at your institution? Number 2 is, what does it cost per credit? Number 3, what percentage of tuition cost funds the operating budget for your institution? Number 4 is, what is the retention cost of one student? Number 5, what is the recruiting cost of just one student? And then finally, number 6, how does the cohort default rate affect your operating budget of your institution? So we're going to dive into a little bit deeper into these.
Thanks, Tom. Now this graph tells us a lot, but in just a second we'll turn it back over to Tom, and he's going to put it in a little more basic graph that chart that would be a little bit easier. But one thing that's really important to note when we're discussing the factors to measure is inflation. And it's really important as well to take into account the increase of tuition across this country. But then also don't forget the salary growth, because all this is going to come together. We all hear about inflation, and we know tuition has been increasing much greater than the average rate of inflation. But for just a moment, let's deep dive into the numbers. So let's take a look at this graph, which captures a couple of things. So first, you're going to notice there's 3 sectors that are being measured by higher education categories. And then along the bottom, notice the trends is over a 30-year period. So that's key. that we're going to measure the trends upwards. So each bar is the graph. It's basically that 10-year period. So when you're keeping that in mind, look at the price, the average cost and fees priced reflect in the district charges for public two-year institutions and in state changes for the public four-year institutions. Then you're going to notice that the public four-year tuition and fees are 3.13 times more expensive in 2017 than it cost in 1987. And this is after being adjusted in the Consumer Price Index. The median family income in the United States during this exact same span of time is only 18% higher. And that's based upon the U.S. 2016 census. The average annual rate of increase in tuition and fees at a private nonprofit four-year institution declined by 2.9% between 88 and 98 to 2.3% over the next two decades. The average dollar actually increased $570 per year over the first two decades, and then $740 between 2008 and 2018. So, also important is the median family income. So there was an increase of 0.9% between 88 and 98, 0% between 98 and 2008, and only 0.8 between 08 and 2017 after adjusting for inflation. So that's where we get the median family income was only 18% higher in 2017 in comparison to 1987. So make sure you really keep that in your mind, 18% higher over that 30-year span. These three factors, inflation, income, tuition, and fees, are all important factors to measure when we're painting the real picture here. And this chart this graph was provided by the College Board. Now, Tom, break it down in a way that they can easily see the difference.
I'm a very visual person, so I've got to see it like this. So you might find this a little bit easier to follow. This table and chart shows the cost of college. The college costs and general inflation for the period from 1958 through 1996, as well as the 10-year periods 1986 through 1996. As you can see here, the college inflation rates run between 1.5 and 2 times the general inflation rate. Wow. A good rule of thumb is that the tuition rates will increase about twice the general inflation rate. Now, during any 17-year period from 1958 to 2001, the average annual tuition inflation rate was between 6 and 9%, ranging from 1.2 times general inflation to 2.1 times the rate of general inflation. Now, on average, tuition tends to increase about 8% a year. An 8% college inflation rate means that the cost of college doubles about every 9 years. For a baby born today, this means that that college costs will be more than 3 times the current rates when the child matriculates in college. Yikes.
Yes, all those newborn babies out there, I'm sure parents cringe when they think about that.
I know I would.
So, Tom, we're back to poll number 2. So what is the current inflation rate? Do you happen to have the results, Tom?
Let me bring back up the poll. I have it here. So let's see, what is the, we're on poll number 2. The answer is, okay, so what is the current inflation rate? We had 8% report the 4.84%. We had at 3.73%, 3.73%, we had 42% vote for that one. And then 1.88%, there were around 5 people, or 42%. And then D, 2%, we had 1 person vote for that, and that was about 8% of the respondents.
Well, Well, congratulations to the 5 people that selected C. So inflation rates actually change daily, but they're posted once a month. So the June should be posted around the 10th of this month. But as of this morning, I checked, and it's just under 2% at 1.88%.
Terrific. Now we have one more poll. What is the rate of college tuition increase between 1980 and 2014? And so our options were 7.52, 57.72%, 160.25, or 260%. So let's turn to the poll results here. On A, we had a response rate of 17%. On B, we had a response rate of 25%. C, 50% of respondents voted for that one. And D was 1%, or I'm sorry, 8%. One person responded to that one.
Well, I wish we had a prize for that one person that selected 260%. And that was stated by Senator Lamar Alexander, and many of you know that he is currently and unfortunately about to wind down as a key person for higher education. So now let's talk about retention. Or I'm sorry, recruiting costs. Tom, I'll let you have the retention slide. Sometimes we change things up just a little bit. So we talked about inflation, and we've talked about tuition increases because college tuition continues to increase at a rate the average salaries just can't keep up with. And as we were talking about the babies born today, without something changing, it's really going to create that gap between those that cannot afford college and those that do not qualify for financial aid. So this is just one more feather in the cap of why it's important to offer financial wellness on a college campus. Noel Levitt's published a benchmark snapshot of recruiting costs based upon a poll created from 126 nonprofit 4-year colleges between October the 17th and November the 7th of 2017. The first thing you will most likely notice is that private institutions spend significantly more to recruit a student, whether it's an incoming, a transfer, or an international student. But the point of this table is that institutions know exactly what they spend on recruiting a college student. I questioned this myself. So if you asked a president or the director of admissions, because you need that for the calculation that we're about to do, they're going to know this most likely off the top of their head, and they can answer you immediately. However, I was at a symposium where I had an opportunity to reach out and actually ask about 50 college presidents the question about not how much it costs to retain a student, but not how much it costs to recruit a student, but how much it does cost to retain a student. And wheels were spinning. Everybody wanted to provide an answer, but at the conclusion of the town hall we were having, no one had a definite, and almost all of them were looking for that magic formula of what it cost to actually retain a student. But they do know what it cost to lose a student.
Okay, let me. Alrighty, so we're on retention costs. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my technology today. It's just not working right. So let's ask the question, ask you this question. How would you convert your knowledge gain for financial well-being of your students into a monetary value? Let's begin with the cost of attrition. Now, the equation is what the cost per number of hours enrolled, what is the remaining number of terms, and did the screen just change, guys? I'm sorry.
It's just jumping all over the place.
I don't know what's going on with this today. Multiply these two numbers and add what the average alumni contribution is per graduate, and trust me, alumni affairs, you know, they're going to give you a number in a really, you know, just a split second, right?
Every time.
Every time they're going to know. So why are students leaving higher education programs? Now, Fox Business reported on January 19th of 2018 that 51% of college students dropped out of college due to cost. You know, a survey from Lend EDU found that 79% of students surveyed claimed financial constraints will delay their graduation, and then another 55% said they struggle to find enough money even to attempt to go to college. Now, the finding that most grabbed our attention is that 50% of millennials stated they would give up their right to vote to get student loans erased. And I'm pretty shocked by that, because one of the privileges that less than a half century ago was the most valued was one of the freedoms, you know, of this country is, you know, the right to vote. And most millennials will give it up because of their overwhelming burden of debt. So what about the Gen Zs? Now, the majority of Gen Z, you know, they're a little bit more realistic about the potential earnings, with 50% anticipating to earn about $45,000 a year post-graduation. Now, to get a sense of the average starting salary for a variety of bachelor's degrees in the U.S., we pulled data from PayScale to create the table. Wait a minute, I'm on the wrong one, huh?
And I removed the table and didn't tell you.
Yes, you did. So we had a table here, and I apologize for that. But anyway,
PayScale's a great resource, though, to send students.
it really is. Now, Generation Z is willing to sacrifice to afford college, basically, is what we're saying here. So apologies that the table was removed, and I'm just plowing along here because I had written my notes in advance. So.
Oh. Well, Tom, we're going to make it.
Yes, we are.
So what about the cohort default rate? Everybody knows what that is, right? It's that big number that we eagerly await every September. So there's no doubt, as we've said multiple times already today, that students are borrowing more money than ever before. But unfortunately, they're repaying better or worse. You know how it goes. The country tends to stay above 10% for quite some time now. And as you look at this graph, we did take a tiny dip this year, or in September of 18. Many national surveys document the number one reason that students drop out of college is because of financial reason. I know I tend to drill that over and over. But that also means if they drop out, that the likelihood of them repaying their loans actually increases as well. So how does this affect your institution's cohort default rate? Exactly what I was just saying. The longer a student stays in school, the more likely he or she is to repay their student loans. So let's begin to add the pieces together. Students come to school unprepared. They borrow money that they don't understand how they have to repay. And then with tuition being 3 times higher than the cost of salary increases, are we setting up our students to fail? The greatest loss to any institution caused by the default rate is no doubt the possibility of losing their Title IV funding. But if a student can't complete their education due to cost, then they can't repay their student loans, and they're not going to receive the higher paying jobs. And then they're certainly not going to contribute to the alumni foundations. Tom?
Thanks, Brenda. And so now let's take a look at the math. Let's take a couple of minutes to work through a simple math problem to ensure we have a basic equation to discover an estimated monetary value, alrighty? So one example here is calculating the value of financial education programming. Now, this simple calculation provides a numbers-driven approach to determining the return on investment of financial education. You know, we'll not be adding any unique institutional specific factors in today's calculation. So remember, when you're putting together the facts for your institution, you need to begin by making a list of exact or best estimated costs for all variables you identify for your institution. Now, let's take a look at the cost of attrition. For simplicity's sake, let's use $10,000 cost for tuition and fees per year, fall, spring, full-time. Now, to determine the number of credit hours, divide the number of hours used in a standard full-time enrollment in your full-time enrollment programs. Let's take a look at the first bullet here. For example, you're going to take $10,000 and divide it by 30 credits. That's going to get you at $333.33 per credit hour, or about $5,000 per semester. Or if you know the credit hour rate is $333.33, then you will multiply the average number of hours per first-time full-time students taken at your institution. Remember, the new focus is to finish in 4 years, so students need to pass 15 credit hours per term. I know it was, when I worked in college in Indiana, it was 15 to finish. That was the slogan. Bullet point number 2, determine the annual income from full-time students. For example, 500 new full-time students generates about $5 million per year, right? We've got that. And then in bullet number 3, let's see here, bullet number 3 here, what is your 1-year attrition rate? Now you could also determine the reason a student withdrew by withdrawal slips or a survey, possibly. So how many do you have left due to financial reasons? So an example here would be at the end of the year, 100 students left school. 73 left for financial education related reasons. And now in bullet number 4, and I know I'm not doing this justice. Brenda has put this together and she's done a fabulous job, and she does this really, really well. So in bullet number 4, what is your lost revenue? Now 73 students left for financial education related reasons, and so we multiply that by 10,000 in lost revenue per year times 3 remaining years, right? Am I on track there, Brenda?
You got it.
All right. So during these 3 years, your institutional loss would be around $2.19 million, almost $2.2 million on those 73 students. So now, let's consider your institution purchased a financial wellness program at the average cost of, say, $20,000 a year, which results in retaining 10 of those students who are paying $10,000 a year. After paying for the financial wellness tool, the institution would have about $80,000 in income from those students in the very first year alone. Pays for itself, right? Remember, this doesn't assess any factors except for the loss of income of students who dropped out due to financial hardship and the cost to implement financial wellness programs. The benefits very clearly outweigh the monetary cost. So I hope you were able to glean something from that.
Thanks, Tom. And I just want to reiterate that every calculation is very simple, but remember from earlier in the presentations the things you want to take into account too. We were looking at the amount that contributed to the operating fund. So make sure you identify all the other costs as well, whether it's hours in the classroom, if you have faculty teaching this, or it could be an online module like Tom just used in this scenario. So the purpose of today's webinar is to actually give you some fuel to build the case of why you need to support financial wellness on your college campus. So we know that no matter what, you have to be prepared, and that was the purpose of this webinar. And then you have to have a way that you have the undivided attention of the decision makers on your college campus. So after today's presentation, our goal is that you can build your case, then request the meeting after you've completed your homework. So do your homework. Many schools that we work with have a host of financial wellness strategies meeting before they actually begin to build a program. The first question I always ask if I go in to one of these strategic planning meetings is simply, who's going to be in the meeting? Almost always I'm told 1 or 2 people. And I let them know pretty quickly, that's the wrong answer. We can't build a campus-wide initiative if our strategic planning committees consist of 1 or 2 people. So financial literacy is a huge opportunity to actually unite the entire institution. So now you need to be asking, who has passion? Who cares about financial literacy? Who cares about their students? Who can be one of your major champions to take financial literacy across to all students on your college campus? And who has the students' attention? Do you kind of get where I'm going with all this?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can't just be you, and it can't just be one department. And many times it starts in financial aid, and we know that you guys in financial aid are so overwhelmed during peak season, which is well over a third of the year, if not more. So before you actually do a calculation or even begin to put your business plan together about why financial literacy, start by doing your homework. With every college I've ever met with through my 20 plus years in higher education, to plan a financial literacy or financial wellness program or even a campaign, when I have the people around the table, I ask, what do you currently do to support financial education on your college campus? I have yet to have somebody not speak up and share something that they do, whether it's with their class of students or their dorm of students, that's not tied back into what should be considered part of the master plan. So people do care. Your homework is go find them, find out what your institution is doing that very small sectors even know about. There may be a program that you can actually piggyback on, and that there may be just that one faculty member that thought nobody else really cared. Or it could be somebody, for example, at one of my institutions, I have somebody in facilities that he feels like that he touches every student's life that's on campus. And they could not find a champion, so he stepped up to the plate. And let me tell you, he's leading a charge that they now have a very strong financial literacy program across their campus, and it continues to expand into first gen programs. It was already in trio programs, but they are just really moving mountains after they started doing their homework and started putting their committee together. So know your numbers. We began today with a short list of numbers that you need to know, and you need to interview people across campus to get the answers to. Gather the facts, get your numbers, and begin to paint your picture. And when you're painting your picture, it all becomes real. You'll be able to see the vision and put it in a plan that then you can sell up the administration to get the buy-in for the funding. So have each one of these values. You can share your return on investment to the administration, and they'll get the picture. If you can put it into, like Tom was saying earlier, a chart or a graph to where they don't want a lot of verbiage. We know those people are busy as well, but give them a snapshot. Start talking about how much money they can save in the operating budget. They're instantly going to see that a minimal cost is well worth the effort to get a program off the ground. So in conclusion, be ready to set everything up. You're ready to lead the charge. So when you walk into the room with all the facts, with your proposed plan, you can build a case on why financial literacy is important, and you can walk away with the dollars needed to launch your program. Everything will be super until one question is asked, and that is, who's going to lead the charge? But by doing your homework ahead of time, you've got that in your plan as well. It's not going to be just one person, and it's not going to be just one department. So if you do the 4 simple steps, your administration, if you do these 4 simple steps with your administration, which are personal teach, train, plan, and then all the other needs will be in person, won't be just led by one person, then you can accomplish what you need to do, and you can show your chancellor or president the value of financial literacy.
Terrific. Alrighty, so if you would like more information about what we talked today, here's a list of resources. Now, don't worry about necessarily trying to capture these really quickly. We will be sending out a copy of this presentation after the webinar today in PDF format. We typically send that out a couple of hours afterwards because we can send a copy of or a link to the recording as well. So, but here's a list of resources that we also used in the development of today's webinar.
And Tom, we have a jam-packed summer of opportunities for webinars coming up for everyone. We tried to get ahead of the game this summer so that we would be prepared to make sure that our Financial Wellness Basic webinars continue through the peak season. Everybody needs a slight break from time to time during their busy day. But also, there's ones that you just certainly don't want to miss, like understanding consumer credits and scores or leveraging social media to promote your financial literacy effort. I think we have some really great upcoming webinars. But I have another great news to share as well. Tom, do you know what I'm going to share?
No, I don't.
You know, I'm very passionate about the FAB Life game.
Oh, yes.
And I mentioned it earlier. Now you can go online at ecmc.org and select the school section, and you can order your very own FAB Life game. And it's usually shipped out within a week or so. So you can have something on hand in your office anytime that you want to start building your resource package to have your very own financial literacy program on your campus. Go check it out.
Absolutely. It's been very popular. We've been receiving lots of orders for that game kit. So with that, we'd like to thank you for your time today. Sorry about some of the little technical snafus today. As hard as we try to minimize, they just sneak up on us sometimes. Here's our contact information if you'd like more information about today's session or any other session. We're also on social media at ECMC FAB on Facebook and Twitter. We post pretty regularly some information that we think that you can either use for yourself or turn around and use with your students. If you would like a copy of if you'd like a certificate showing that you've participated in today's webinar, please shoot us or shoot me an email. I can get that out there very quickly to you, and I will get you that certificate. As mentioned, I will send out a copy of the presentation with a link to the recording in a few hours once Zoom is done processing that. With that, we'd like to thank you for your time again, and have a great rest of the week. We'll see you again here soon. Take care.
Goodbye, everyone.